Hello friends, my name is Faye and you're watching Mystery Date with a Book. Today we're doing my wrap-up for the Bookemon readathon, or in other words, the month of May. So it's a May wrap-up. I took part in this readathon. Go check out my TBR if you want to, it's all about the Bookemon readathon, and I think I did really well, if I say so myself. I've read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 books and an audiobook. So yes, 12 books. That doesn't happen very often for me. No, I'm a very slow reader, but you know what? I'm proud of myself. I've read quite a lot. Now, every time I show my mom a whole pile of books that I've read, she's like, you need to get a life. Get a life. I'm like, this is my life. I like reading. Right, the first one we have here, these are not in the order that I read them in, okay? It's just by size, really, because I put a pile here and have the biggest books at the bottom, working my way up to the smallest books. This is the smallest book I read in May. So, 'Twas a Night Shift Before Christmas by Adam Kay. I know it's not the theme of the month, Christmas was like, what, 5 months ago, 6 months ago now? But still, it's a very entertaining book. I don't think this was as entertaining as his first book, This Is Going to Hurt. I'm going to put the picture up here for you. I think that first book was better. It was more informative, it was more eye-opening, it was more entertaining. But maybe it's just because that was a novelty, and now that I know Adam Kay's style of writing, it was no surprise, that this one was good. But anyway, it was good. This is, if you don't know Adam Kay, he used to be a doctor in the NHS here in the UK, and he had a diary, and he published his diaries. It's so good. It's such an eye-opening book and entertaining as well, which you wouldn't think, a non-fiction book about medicine, about doctors. But it is. It's brilliant. If you're looking for a non-fiction book, if you're not really into non-fiction but you want to dip your toe into it, I'd say go with, not this one, because this is like the sequel. Go with This Is Going to Hurt by Adam Kay. You're not going to regret it. And this book I got from Victoria, from What Victoria Read. Now, all these books, if you don't remember, if you didn't see my TBR video, all the books that I've read this month, I received as gifts from you guys, from my followers. That was amazing. I never expected anyone to send me books, but you guys have been constantly sending me books. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to take a whole month and just read books that I received from you guys. So that's what I did. Now, this was from Victoria, at What Victoria Read, and I really, really loved it. I find, in my mind, this is very on brand with Victoria. Adam Kay reminds me of Victoria from What Victoria Read, and Nicole from A Beautiful Chaos of Books. They both talk about him, and I don't know, I found out about him through those two booktubers, and so yeah, thanks Victoria. Then I listened, this is actually the audiobook that I listened to, The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. Now, Audible was doing like this 3 for 2 on their audiobooks, and I already had this as a physical copy anyway because my friend recommended it to me, and she said, oh, you have to read it, so I got the book. And then I saw that the whole trilogy was on Audible, on those 3 for 2 sale, it was on that sale. And so I got the trilogy as an audiobook, 3 audiobooks, and I listened to it while I was reading it, and it was brilliant. It was amazing. Now, just yesterday, I was on Facebook, and you know how some people put up posts like, put your picture down here and we'll tell you what book character you are, that kind of thing. I put my picture down, and everyone said I looked like Jude Duarte, I think that's her name, Jude Duarte. And yeah, she's the main character in The Cruel Prince, and I had just finished reading The Cruel Prince. I was like, yes, that's perfect. So yeah, apparently I look like her. I don't know. I didn't really picture her like me, but I'm honored. I'm flattered. So yeah, anyway, The Cruel Prince, that was really good as well. If you don't know, it's about Faye and Faye's, you know. That's not why I'm called Faye, okay? Faye's just short for Fernanda. It's just my nickname. But, yeah. I really, really enjoyed this. I'd describe this as typical YA fantasy. Full of drama and assassins and a bit of romance as well. It was typical YA fantasy, which is not a bad thing. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's just I've read too many of them, so I'm kind of over it. But this was good, and I'm going to carry on with the trilogy because, you know, I already have the trilogy as an audiobooks. Now, remember I said I was only reading books that I had been given this month? Well, this was the exception. This was a recommendation by a friend, and I already had the audiobook, so, you know, I just listened to it while playing The Sims, and sometimes I picked the physical copy up so I could read it along with the audiobook. But yeah, this was the exception. This was not given to me by anyone. Okay, then I read Elantris by Brandon Sanderson, and this, now I have to read the notes because I get confused. I don't know who sent me what. There are too many books. Thank you so much, by the way. This is a good problem to have. This one was sent by Audrey at Choose Yourself 101. Hi Audrey. I love her videos, by the way. Go check her out. She's quite a new booktuber, but the enthusiasm that she brings to her videos is brilliant. It's inspiring. So yes, go check her out. I'm gonna leave all their links down below for you to follow them, okay? So yeah, Elantris by Brandon Sanderson. Now, I was sure, I was 90% sure that this was a standalone. It turns out that there's books 2 and 3 coming out. Not soon, because Brandon Sanderson needs to finish some other books first. But apparently, he said that there's going to be a book 2 and a book 3, so yes! I love this book so much. This is about... I don't even know how to explain it. You know what this is about, right? Everyone has read this book, okay? So I'm not gonna explain it. It's a brilliant Brandon Sanderson book. If you're a bit scared of going into his most famous trilogy, which is the Mistborn trilogy, it is a bit intimidating. I get it, because they're chunky books. Before you jump into that, if you're a bit intimidated, I'd say go with this one, because for now it's a standalone, and it's big, but it's not that big. It's 590 pages, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, it's doable, and the story is brilliant, okay? It's filled with magic and political intrigue and royalty. It's just brilliant. 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 So yeah, I'd really recommend this if you're trying to get into fantasy or if you're trying to get into Brandon Sanderson books. Highly recommend it. Then I read The Girl Who Speaks Bear by Sophie Anderson. This one was given to me by Victoria. What Victoria read again. Thank you so much. So much. I don't deserve you as a friend. I really don't. Yes. Victoria's wonderful. So yeah, she sent me The Girl Who Speaks Bear, and this was such a brilliant story. It's a middle grade about this girl who feels like she has a calling to go into the forest. She feels the forest calling to her. That makes more sense. Okay, so this book is about a girl who was found in the forest when she was still a baby or a toddler. I think she was a toddler. And she was found, and then, you know, a lady from the village adopted her and raised her. But she feels the forest calling to her. She wants to go back into the forest and, you know, find where she came from, find out who her parents are, you know, all that. It's such a wonderful story, really. I didn't even know what to say. The characters were brilliant. Yanka, the main character, Yanka the bear, she was the main character, and it's just brilliant. She has, I I don't know, it's not a ferret, is it? She has a little animal with her. It's sort of like a ferret, but it's not exactly a ferret. He follows her around anyway, and it's just brilliant. I don't want to give any spoilers away, so I'm not going to go too much into any of these books. If you're looking for a middle grade with a mysterious atmosphere, I want to say, yeah. It has amazing characters. The setting is brilliant. I would really recommend it. Anyway, I'm not gonna go into it. Yes, read it. I'm brilliant at explaining books, aren't I? I know. Thank you very much. Right, now this book, I got this book from Mary Among Stories, and this is The Prison Doctor by Dr. Amanda Brown. Now this is another non-fiction book about doctors. Do you see a pattern here? I like my non-fiction books to be about doctors and prisons. This is a perfect combination. This is about a doctor who works in prisons. She used to be a GP. She used to be just a family doctor, as you call it. I don't know. They might have a different name in other countries, but yeah, she's like a family doctor. And she decided to quit her job one day for reasons, and she then decided to work in a prison, and then she moved to another prison and then another prison, and oh, it was so good. Now, trigger warning, okay? I think books should come with trigger warnings, okay? Yeah. Trigger warning for this one: violence, drug use, child abuse. I can't deal with that. Yeah. And lots of rape. Especially towards the end, you get to hear some horrid stories. So, it's a brilliant book. It's very informative. It's very engaging. But you have to be prepared. If those are things that trigger you, just be warned. They do talk about it. And some of the explanations, some of the descriptions can be quite graphic. So, not too much, but it's enough to trigger you if that's one of your, traumas, or, if it sets you off. I know I can't deal with child abuse and rape. I don't know, okay? I can't deal with it. But I didn't know that this book had those topics, okay? And by the time that came up, it was already too late. I was at the end of the book, and I was too invested. So I kind of, I tried to skim read. I tried to, skip those bits. But yeah, still, trigger warning. Lots of trigger warnings for this one. That's all I'm gonna say. Then I got another book by Victoria from What Victoria Read. Girl, no words. Okay, this is The Girl Who Drank the Moon by Kelly Barnhill. Another brilliant book. I feel like I'm describing every single book as a brilliant book, but that's because they are. I've had a brilliant reading month with lots of brilliant books. The Girl Who Drank the Moon. Now, this is a middle grade, but personally, as a teacher, I don't see this as middle grade. This is more YA, even though the main character is, I think she's 12, just barely 13 by the end. We follow her through babyhood until she's about 13, and the other main character is a boy who starts off at around 12, I think, and then he grows up into his 20s. So, for a middle grade, I don't think children would connect to that character, to that second character, the older one. Plus, a lot of the story revolves around mothers losing their babies, because every year they leave the youngest baby in the forest for the witch as a form of sacrifice to, keep her happy, and so she won't attack the village. So, a lot of grief is involved in the story, which is not something that middle grade students would relate to. I don't think it's not the right theme. It's not the right topic for children to read. Like, I get children reading about death. Yes, it's important. But I don't think they would connect to this story, because what kind of child would connect to a story about mothers losing their babies? Like, it's not at their level yet. You know what I mean? Now, Books for Life. I'm gonna leave her link down below. She did a brilliant, another one, again, me with the word brilliant. She did a wonderful review about this book. I'm gonna leave that link down below. I would really recommend you go and check it out. She's a teacher like me, and her review is so much more eloquent. You know, she actually put the time to think about this book and do a proper review. I just picked it up and started talking about it. So yeah, if you wanted to read a proper review about this book, I would highly recommend it for teenagers, for adults, but I wouldn't actually call this a middle grade book. But it was still really, really good. I gave this, I think it was 4.5 out of 5 stars, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I loved it. I loved this book. But I wouldn't recommend it for children, like 8 to 12-year-olds, which is the target age for middle grade. 8 to 12-year-olds, it would just go over their heads. Okay, then we're moving on to the bigger, chunkier books. This is a book I got from Mel, from a book fiend named Mel. It's such a long channel name, and I'm scared of saying it wrong. A book fiend named Mel. Yes, Mel, thank you so much for this book. It was so cute. Now, this is like a graphic novel about this little kitten, about this cat who is called Chi, and we just follow him through, well, her, it's a girl. We follow her through her life adventures and, you know, finding a home and, you know, getting used to living indoors and all that. She is the cutest thing ever. So yeah, I read this bit by bit at night throughout the month, and it was just brilliant. It was sort of like a relaxing end to the day, you know, after reading about assassins and prison doctors and whatnot. You just come in and read about this cute little kitten, and it keeps the nightmares away. That's all I'm gonna say. This is Chi Sweet Home Part 1. There's volumes, oh, I don't even know how many volumes there are. Volumes 1, 2, and 3 in here. It's a whole collection. It's thick, but you can fly through it. It's brilliant. Then we have our first thriller of the month. I forgot how much I love thrillers. This is The Turn of the Key by Ruth Ware. I got this from Kat at Brews and Reviews, and I forgot how much I missed reading thrillers. This was so good, so good. I remember at the end of the book, I couldn't stop reading it. So you know, it was way past my bedtime, but I kept on reading it. And after I finished the book, I couldn't sleep. It was so scary. It was so creepy. And I couldn't sleep afterwards. Then I tweeted, and Ruth Ware actually responded saying, "Whoops, sorry," or something like that. I don't remember. Oh my goodness, it was just so, so good. The Turn of the Key. If you're looking for a thriller set in Scotland, or the UK in general, you know, because the main character, she actually lives down south. I think she lives in London or around London, and then she gets this job as a babysitter in a big house up in Scotland. Now, the house is very futuristic. It's full of technology. There are these keypads on the walls, and you press and everything happens around you, you know. It's hard to explain, but it's brilliant. It's full of technology, and it gets a little bit creepy, and you feel sorry for the babysitter because, you know, it's a tough job. I would never take on that job. But yeah, it's amazing. Right from the beginning, you know that one of the little girls, one of the children that she's looking after, dies. You find out right from the start, from the very first chapter, so it's not a spoiler. I think it's at the back as well. But yeah. So you know that one of the children is going to die, but you don't know which one. You don't know when, you don't know how. But it's it was done so brilliantly well. I loved it. It kept me reading to the end. I think I read this in 2 sittings, I think it was. It was amazing, amazing. The Turn of the Key, read it. So after I had already started my TBR, I had already started reading all your books, I received another book in the post by one of you. That was Shades of Magic by V. Schwab. The Steel Prince. This is the first graphic novel in the Steel Prince trilogy series. I don't know. I think it's a trilogy, isn't it? I don't know. It doesn't say. But yes, the Steel Prince. This was so good. There's no note on it, but that's because Chloe said, I sent to Chloe, and Chloe said that it didn't give her an option of writing a note, so there's no note on it. But I know it's from Chloe, so thank you. And I loved it. It was such a quick read. I read it in 1 sitting. It was so good. So good. So I need the second one. I need to know what happens. And yes, if you're not aware, this is like a prequel to Shades of Magic trilogy. This happens years before A Darker Shade of Magic. If you've read Shades of Magic and you miss that world, there you go. Read it. Then I read one of the biggest books I have ever read in my life, and it was so worth it. It was The Prairie of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. So good. So good. Okay, so because the memory on my phone is about to fill up, we're gonna carry on really quickly. This is the biggest book I've ever read, and it's amazing. The Prairie of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. I got this from Flick, didn't I? Yeah, Flick. Amadeus? Amadeus? I'm really bad with names, sorry Flick. This is over 800 pages long, and I absolutely loved every single page. The end was a little bit rushed. I was a little bit disappointed by the end of the book, but I would definitely reread this. It was such an amazing fantasy story. I have a full review up there. You can go and read it. You can go and watch it. You can go and read this book, okay? If you're on the fence, if you're a bit intimidated by this book, you're not sure if you should pick it up, do pick it up because it's worth it. Just, read it a little bit at a time. I know it's big, I know it's chunky, it's intimidating, but if you read it like 20 pages a day, you'll be fine, There's no rush. There's no deadline for you to finish this book, unless you read it in a readathon like I did. But, you know what? It was absolutely fine. I flew through this book. It was just so good. Full of diversity, full of action, and at the beginning I was a little bit lost because there were too many characters. But you know what, as soon as you get used to them, as soon as you get to know those characters, you just fly through the book. It's amazing. I'm not going to say brilliant again. It was amazing. It was 5 out of 5 stars. Amazing. Then we had a new release, which I got myself. I didn't get this from anyone. It was just, a pre-order. The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. This is a prequel to the Hunger Games. If you've been living under a rock and you haven't heard about it yet, this is a prequel to the Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. And this tells us the story about, I was gonna say Jon Snow. It's not about Jon Snow. It's about President Snow. As he's finishing high school and, trying to get into college and all that period of his life, that's what we read about here. And we can see, I don't want to excuse his actions, but we can see how he became who he is in the Hunger Games. But he is, I think, in my opinion, he's just fundamentally evil as a person. Even with his backstory, I know his backstory, that still doesn't excuse his behavior. Yes, he's just evil, isn't he? So, yeah. Anyway, brilliant story. If you missed the Hunger Games, this is not, it doesn't have the same feel as the Hunger Games because we're seeing the Hunger Games from the capital's perspective. So it's very different, and the Hunger Games were at their very earliest, you know, they were just starting out, so we didn't have all that energy around it. So anyway, it's a good book. I don't regret reading it. It's really, really good. I missed some of these characters, and yeah, it was just nice being back there in that dystopian world, you know. It was good. It was good. I highly recommend it. Is it overhyped? A little bit, yes. But it's still a good book. So, that's it. These are all the books I've read. Let me put them back here. Oh, dear me. So, these are all the books that I've read in the month of May for the Bookemon Readathon. I had a really good reading month, I have to say. Oh, I have to hold this with my knee because it's heavy. And yeah. So, these are all the books I've read. Thank you so much for sending me all these books, really. Nothing I say will ever be enough. Thank you, really, honestly. Thank you so much for sending me such amazing books as well. I know they were all on my wish list, but you know, sometimes you get, you know, some not so good books on your wish list because you haven't read them yet, so you don't know. But I had a really good reading month. Thank you so much. And yeah, have you read any of these books? Are you thinking of picking them up? Tell me about it in the comments. If you like this video, you know what to do. Give it a like, subscribe, click the bell, and leave a comment. And I'll see you next time. Goodbye.